Hey guys, welcome back to another week of What's for Dinner. So on Monday, I tried a new recipe called chicken Parmesan roll-ups. I got this idea from Taylor Elmore. She made it in one of her recent What's for Dinner videos. I will have a link to her channel down in my description box in case you haven't checked her channel out yet. So I'm starting off with 8 pieces of chicken tenders, and I have just seasoned that first side with some salt, pepper, garlic powder, and onion powder, and I'm just flipping all of those over, and I'm going to season the other side the exact same way. Next, I'm just adding in some butter to my skillet, and that's what I'm going to be cooking my chicken in. So I'm just going to cook each side for a few minutes so that it can form kind of a nice crust, and of course until the chicken is completely cooked through. So while that is finishing up, I'm just going to mix together some mayo and Parmesan cheese. This is what's going to be spread over top of the chicken, and I know that might sound weird to some of you guys, but trust me, it's a great combination. Next, I'm just going to whip out the crescent rolls, and I'm going to unroll those onto a foil-lined cookie sheet that I have sprayed with some nonstick cooking spray. And I'm going to take my chicken and I'm going to place one piece onto each crescent roll. Now, I will recommend that you let those chicken tenders completely cool down before you do this step, because that heat from the chicken was kind of melting my crescent rolls and making them pretty hard to work with and roll up. Plus, they will heat right back up in the oven. So after I have finished that, I'm just going to place some of that mayo Parmesan mixture right on top, and then I'm going to spread that around and roll these up. So you are supposed to put mozzarella cheese on top of that mayo mixture, but I completely forgot and didn't even realize until I had already rolled all of these up. So that was a bummer, but I just moved on with my day, and I baked these at 375 degrees for 15 minutes. As you can see, these got nice and golden brown. I gave myself 2 of these, and I served it with some warmed up marinara sauce on the side for dipping. We also had some side salads to go along with it, so some lettuce, tomato, cheese, and croutons. This was an awesome meal. We absolutely love those roll-ups. They would have been over the top with that mozzarella cheese, so I will definitely be making these again, and I do recommend them. Up next, I made some cheesy potato soup. This recipe is a little bit different from the one that I normally make. So for the ingredients, we have some russet potatoes, onion powder, salt and pepper, some chicken broth, cream of chicken, minced garlic, butter, and some sharp cheddar cheese. And then not pictured is some flour and milk, which will later on thicken up the soup. So this was supposed to be an Instant Pot recipe, but I somehow managed to melt a plastic lid onto the bottom. So I had my pot in and I turned it onto saute. I had no idea that this was underneath, obviously, and I started to smell some burning plastic. So I lifted up the pot and I saw this mess. So how this happened, I will never know, but it was a pain to clean up. So learn from my mistakes and take my advice when I say to always check underneath your pot before you turn it on. But since that was a total fail, I just moved this on over to my stovetop. So here is my bowl. I topped it with some crumbled bacon and some freeze-dried chives. Potato soup is always a family favorite. The kids absolutely love this, and as always, I will have the recipe linked down in my description box. I served this with some butter rolls on the side, and that was our easy dinner for Tuesday. On Wednesday, I made some barbecue chicken, so I just took 1 large chicken breast and I sliced it into 3 thinner pieces, and then I seasoned both sides with my homemade adobo seasoning. I will have that recipe linked as well if you're interested. I always keep this stuff in my spice cabinet. I put it in this little old Parmesan shaker that my mother-in-law gave me a long time ago, but I just popped that in my oven for 15 minutes at 350 degrees, and then I topped it with some barbecue sauce, and then I'm just going to pull out my little brush and I'm going to spread that all over the tops, and I'm going to pop that in my oven for 5 more minutes. And then I'm going to pull it out, flip the chicken over, and slather some more barbecue sauce on the other side and pop it in for a final 5 minutes, and that is it. This turned out so good as always. Barbecue chicken is definitely one of my favorites. I served it with some steamed asparagus and some cheesy scalloped potatoes. I'm just using the box kind. This is my favorite one that I have tried. It is the steakhouse variety, and it has this crispy Parmesan cheese coating on top that makes it so good. That was our simple dinner for that night. On Thursday, I tried another new recipe called Amish country casserole. So I'm starting off by browning up a pound of ground beef, and then I'm going to drain that really well and add that back into my skillet. So now for the seasonings, I'm going to be adding in some minced garlic, salt, black pepper, and some onion powder. I'm going to stir that around really quick just to get those seasonings distributed well, and I'm just going to cook that for a couple of minutes. Meanwhile, I'm going to boil some salted water and add in a 12-ounce bag of egg noodles and cook those until they are al dente. So to a large mixing bowl, I'm just adding in a can of tomato soup as well as a can of cream of celery. The recipe actually calls for cream of mushroom, but we don't like that. I also added in some half and half as well as some Worcestershire sauce and some black pepper, and I'm just going to mix all of that together really well until it looks something like this. Next, I'm just going to add in all of my ground beef, give that a quick mix, and then I'm going to take those egg noodles and I'm going to drain those, obviously, and then I'm just going to dump that on into the mixture as well and gently fold that in. Next, I'm going to be dumping all of this out into my baking dish, and I'm going to be taking my spoon and kind of spreading it out and then smoothing it down so that it's even. And then I'm going to be taking some of this shredded Parmesan cheese and adding it all over the top. If I had to guess, I probably added about a half of a cup, maybe a little more. And I baked that at 350 degrees for 25 minutes, and this is the finished product. This was so delicious. I highly recommend this recipe. I served it with some peas and carrots on the side, and this made a ton, so we had leftovers on Friday as well. Saturday was beautiful. It was like 75 degrees, so we spent the entire day outdoors doing what we love. So that meant Chinese takeout for dinner. Chinese food is one of my favorites, and I rarely have it, so I was super happy. On Sunday, I made some beef tips for the first time, so I started off by heating up some vegetable oil into my skillet, and then I dumped in about a pound of beef stew meat. I broke it apart with my spatula, and I just browned all of the sides. This took about 4 to 5 minutes. Once it looked like this, I added in a cup of water as well as some soy sauce, so I did end up adding in 2 tablespoons of that, and then I also added in 2 tablespoons of Worcestershire sauce. So for my seasonings, I'm adding in some onion powder as well as some garlic powder and some salt and pepper. Next time I wouldn't add the salt. It definitely doesn't need it because all of those ingredients are salty as is. So anyways, I just stirred all of that together for a little bit, and then I let that come up to a boil, and then I popped a lid on and I let that simmer for an hour and a half. The final step was to mix some brown gravy mix into some water, dump that in, and let that come up to a boil for a few minutes just to slightly thicken that sauce. We served ours over some white rice that I cooked in my Instant Pot, and this was probably my favorite meal of the week. It was so flavorful and the meat was super tender. It's definitely going to be a new favorite in our house that I will make over and over again. I served it with some roasted broccoli, and that's going to wrap up this week. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you guys next week.